Hi, my name is Jared Ack, and now I'll be talking to you about prison reform. At this point, our prison system is worse than the prisoners that are sent there. We desperately need prison reform. How our prisons operate is unacceptable and really shows how little they prioritize rehabilitation. I have done thorough research on this topic, so I feel that I am a credible source to speak on the matter. My goal is to persuade you into agreeing with me that our prison system needs to be changed. So today I will be discussing how many prisons are for profit and their only motivation is to make money. I'll talk about the horrible conditions they face while they're locked up, and how countries like Norway and New Zealand have the best and nicest prisons and what we can learn from them. So now that you understand what we're discussing today, let's start off with the for-profit prisons in our country. Prison is supposed to be a place where you punish the actions of criminals and rehabilitate them. The goal should not be making large sums of money. A large issue with these private prisons is that they act like a corporation. With the goals of profit, cutting staff, cutting services is not unthinkable. The less it costs them to house the prisoners, the more profits that they receive. As stated by Ian Carson in Prisons of 2019, statistics page published in 2020, quote, in 2019, privately operated facilities held 7% of state prisoners and 16% of federal prisoners. Now, although this is not a very large percentage, this is still tens of thousands of people residing in a prison that does not really care about their rehabilitation. Private prisons are making vast amounts of money off of people that they're supposed to be helping, as stated by Michael Brickner and Shakira Diaz in Prisons for Profit, Incarceration for Sale in 2011, quote, the largest private prison company, Corrections Corporation of America, CCA, reported revenues of $1.675 billion in 2010 alone. Receiving so much money for prisoners really changes the goals of these for-profit prisons. Instead of rehabilitation, getting prisoners is what matters to them. So now that I've discussed private prisons and their intentions, I want to focus on issues that all prisons have. Prisoners face harsh conditions and have a hard time rehabilitating in most cases. While serving time as their punishment, prisoners also fear for their lives. As stated by the Equal Justice Initiative in Prison Conditions, the U.S. Department of Justice found in a statewide investigation that Alabama routinely violates the constitutional rights of people in its prisons, where homicide and sexual abuse is common, knives and dangerous drugs are rampant, and incarcerated people are extorted, threatened, stabbed, raped, and even tied up for days without guards noticing. My own father, who was incarcerated, was stabbed and nearly died from the violence he faced in prison. It is bad enough to live in such subpar conditions, but to be treated like animals and and wonder if we can be living another day it's horrible, and we need reform to change that. Recidivism is a tendency for a criminal to commit another illegal act is very high here in the United States. A publication was written by Mary L. Albert, Matthew DeRose, and Joshua Markman in 2018 entitled 2018 Update on Prison Recidivism, a 9-year follow-up period from 2005 to 2014. And he discusses the statistics behind recidivism. Quote, an estimated 68% of released prisoners were arrested within 3 years, 79% within 6 years, and 83% within 9 years. Something that our prison system really struggles with in the United States is providing adequate rehabilitation. With so many convicts being imprisoned, there really needs to be a discussion on what can be done to lower these numbers. I feel that at this point we can safely say that we need reform in our prison system. We can really do some good looking at how other countries are managing their prisons. Countries like Norway and New Zealand have some of the best prisons in the world, and we can learn a lot from them. By having such an advanced prison system, Norway and countries alike reap the benefits within their economy. in Policies to Reintegrate Former Inmates into the Labor Force, written by Monadeep Buller, Gordon Dahl, and Katrine Loken in 2016. The authors discuss how these prisoners can benefit their economy. Quote, for the previously non-employed, imprisonment causes a 34 percent point increase in participation in job training programs and a 40% increase in employment rate within 5 years. By focusing on rehabilitation and reintroducing inmates into society, the Norwegians are benefiting their economy. Not only are there more people working, but there are also fewer criminals being released just to be reincarcerated once more. New Zealand, despite having such high incarceration rates, is also making great strides towards better prisons. An article titled Yoga, Herbs and Sunshine, New Zealand Opens Humane Jail for Most Violent Inmates, was written by Eleanor Roy in 2018. The article describes how New Zealand is handling its most dangerous prisoners. Quote, a seed propagation garden will allow prisoners to get their hands dirty and nurture new life with a sensory garden. It aims to soothe and stimulate with plants such as thyme and spearmint and real grass underfoot. Targeting the real issues like mental health and addiction is going to be what helps these prisoners. In 2019, Health Stringer wrote an article titled Improving Mental Health for Inmates, where she wrote, quote, about 37% of people in prison have a history of mental health problems, according to the 2017 report from the U.S. Department of Justice. If people truly want less violent criminals to be released and for rehabilitation to actually happen, then looking into the cause for these issues needs to happen. Now that you have a better idea of the issue and with our prison system and some of the changes we can make, I will review what we've talked about and then come to my conclusion of the speech. The purpose of my presentation was to persuade you to agree with the fact that our prison system needs to change. The main points I went over were the problems we have in prison for profit, the horrible conditions that prisoners face while inside, and how there are many countries out there with better prisons that we can learn from. To close, I will say this. I understand that people who are in prison broke the law and are being punished. At the end of the day, though, they are still people and should be treated as such. Thank you.